podcast alongside Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick as we're here to recap Vanderbilt's 20-13 win over Kentucky here at Kroger Field. Obviously, Diego Pavia had another night. He was banged up. He said it wasn't his best night, but he made enough plays, had a touchdown there to Richie Hoskins, touchdown to A.J. Newberry, and a couple of field goals from Brock Taylor. And it wasn't a high-scoring night. Probably one of the lower-scoring nights for this offense this season. But defensively, they made enough plays. Like we've talked about, this is a playmaking defense. They make enough plays when they're needed. I thought the second-half defensive effort was really solid. Obviously, prayers up to Miles Capers and his injury, and we saw him walking around over here. So I think he's in good spirits. We'll see what happens there. But Joey, really, they took care of business. And I thought Diego Pavia's TV interview after the game was pretty indicative of their mentality right now. Cole Kubelik, was talking about the distractions. People on social media, people outside of you, maybe thought you guys would have been distracted this week heading into Kentucky. Diego says that's not us. That ain't us. So everyone has morphed into that mentality. And Diego also said he thinks everybody's clicking right now. Offense, defense, special teams, and this is a dangerous football team right now.
Yeah, I thought this was a pretty remarkable win. Just seeing last week and kind of the hype machine that was built around this team, it'd be so Vanderbilt to come into this game and lay an egg. Instead, they delivered, and I think with that showed that they have the potential to be a really special team and put together a really special season beyond just one game. I think they came into this game with the potential to be a one-hit wonder, and I think tonight they proved that they're not that. They're a team that you don't want to mess with and a team that's really dangerous if you run up on them on the wrong night. Today, I thought they won in a different way than they've won with previously. They won with their defense. They won with mucking the game up rather than it being a shootout. I think the time of possession was pretty indicative of their mentality too. They wanted to control the ball, but it wasn't like they were putting together super long scoring drives consistently. They had 2 touchdown drives. They had 2 field goal drives. Normally that's not good enough to win, but I thought their defense, especially shorthanded, stood up and really stepped up and found a way to win this game. Nick Rinaldi had a big night. Bryce Cowan had a big night. You saw some corners that you don't normally see with Jalen Lackey being out there. You saw C.J. Taylor play star for a play. I mean, they were really shorthanded. They threw out some different personnel. They threw out some different looks. Still found a way to get it done, though, and I think that's pretty remarkable, especially coming from a program that couldn't even sniff 15 points within an SEC team last year. They're having fun. They're for each other, and it feels like they know how to win. They didn't have their best tonight, but they came out and beat a good team in a stadium that was dang near sold out and it was blacked out. Huge win for Vanderbilt and really an encore to their performance last weekend. It wasn't pretty, but they find a way in a pretty remarkable way.
Yeah, Vandy improves to 4-2 on the season. They're now 2-1 in the SEC. 2 SEC wins here at Kroger Field for Clark Lee. Tonight is his 4th SEC win. But what I keep thinking about, Joey, tonight is this week of practice, their thought was, let's go get more. There's more out there for us. It was never, rest on our laurels after you beat Alabama. It was always Kentucky, Kentucky, Kentucky. And Clark said on Sunday, he said he knew this team was pretty lasered in and focused. But back to Diego Pavia tonight, he said it wasn't his best night. He said that Kentucky brought some heat. I mean, there were some plays where he got decked pretty good. Obviously, Deion Walker got him there in the leg, and that's why he was limping. Went into the injury tent 2 different times, and he'd come back out. And then I think he got dinged up again on another play, had to go right back out to the injury tent. But Pavia fought through. I mean, that kid is one of the tougher players I've ever seen on a football field, and for him to just keep coming back out there was remarkable. They took the will away a little bit from Kentucky, I thought, late. Kentucky was undisciplined tonight.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that's the reason Vanderbilt won, but that's what happens when you feel like, and I talked about this with Robbie tonight in the press box, and when you feel like you have to do that as a team, you're at a disadvantage, whether it's mentality-wise or physically. And I think Vanderbilt, what they proved tonight, Joey, was that they can – I think the Alabama win last week probably should have proven it, but they can hang physically with anybody. Because a lot of the talk after the Alabama game was, well, Vanderbilt, this is a mediocre Alabama defense. This is not a Nick Saban coach defense. This Kentucky defense has been called elite at times this season and extremely physical. And the talk was Deion Walker, how are they going to handle the pressure tonight and this loud home crowd? I thought they handled it as good as they could have. Now, There were some sacks. There were some negative yardage plays. You knew you were going to have those, but they made enough plays. And I think, again, tonight proved Vanderbilt can hang physically with anybody in the SEC, because there were people that said Kentucky top 3-4 defense in the league. Statistically, they were, and probably still are. So I think Vanderbilt just keeps proving people wrong. Javon Hay, I think it was, walking into the locker room, he said, I forget what he said about Vegas, but he said a lot of it was about Vegas and the line and the underdog. I think that was motivation this week. Pavia said it. He said maybe I think Vegas just wanted to lose some money, And so I haven't seen this much confidence from a Vanderbilt team in a long time. Obviously, it starts with Diego, but I think we start realizing Clark deserves a ton of credit. Nick Rinaldi called him a mastermind, a genius tonight, and he is. He schemes up. You can tell they cage the quarterback. Vandegrift ran the football a lot better than I thought he would tonight. And I was reluctant to say he was a good runner, but he is. He's a tough runner. And Kentucky was probably the more physical team there for first quarter, about a good amount of that first half. But Vanderbilt won the middle 8. And I think that's a huge thing to talk about. And they played clean, too. 5 penalties, 57 yards. Kentucky, 12 for over 100. So I think that was a big difference in the game. Vanderbilt playing clean, Kentucky not. And Vandy winning the middle 8. You win the middle 8 most times if you're Vanderbilt and you take care of the football, you're gonna win games.
I think it all just goes back to Vanderbilt knowing how to win now. This game felt like a lot of other games that we've seen with Vanderbilt in the past, except Vanderbilt was Kentucky. In the past, you thought, man, Vanderbilt's making a drive here at the end of the game. They're within striking distance, but it just feels like the other team's going to win. Tonight, it felt like Kentucky's got the ball with a couple minutes left. They're going down the field. It feels like Vanderbilt's got it handled, though. Vanderbilt was the cleaner team. They were the more physical team a lot of the time, and I think Kentucky's a more physically gifted team. But you look at A.J. Newberry extending a run, Cedric Alexander extending a run. You look at Vanderbilt getting in the backfield and getting to Vandegrift. I don't know that that's something I expected going into the night, but Vanderbilt has given me no reason to believe that they can't hang with these type of teams physically, and tonight they did it. They had to do it because they weren't unbelievable on the perimeter. I think Richie Hoskins was tremendous throughout the night. Had probably his best game in a Vanderbilt uniform, at least his most important game in a Vanderbilt uniform. Had the nice dance after the touchdown as well. The team's having a lot of fun, Billy, and they're playing loose, but they're also smart. They're also disciplined, and they know how to win in a way that I don't think we expected them to know how to win. And you looked at the Missouri game a couple weeks back and you say, that team knows how to win, Vanderbilt doesn't. I think that Alabama game always gave them a sense of, hey, we can do this. And I don't know that they didn't have that before, but you just think, man, these guys know how to get it done. They're winners. They're not just guys who have won one game. This is repeatable, and this team has a chance to really be dangerous and a team you don't want to run up on.
This is such a connected group. You can see that in football teams. Kentucky wasn't connected tonight. Vanderbilt, offense, defense, special teams, was connected as an entire team. They played team football. Brock Taylor hit a couple 50-yarders. It was 49 and then 51. But that was his fourth 50-yarder of the season. And for Vanderbilt just to keep trotting him out there with these 50-yard kicks, that's a weapon. It really is, and it's probably the best kicker since Kerry Spear, statistically wise, too. Kerry Spear was the last kicker to do that, make at least 4 50-yarders in the same season. So credit to Brock Taylor. But I want to go defensively first and kind of run through some of my defensive report card stuff, and I'll let you do offensively. I thought Bryce Cowan was a huge factor tonight. And I think coming into this game, Chris Lee had put on the board that he'd only played 2 or 3 snaps this season, which was kind of mind-boggling. They've got a good linebacker room, so that's a credit to the rest of that room. But Clark Lee gave him a shout-out, said these last couple of weeks of practice were really good for him, and he was ready to play. He almost had 2 turnovers. He almost he had an interception, almost forced 2, and almost recovered that fumble there to the house, but both of those were overturned. So I thought Cowan played really well. And then you go to Nick Rinaldi. He spoke to us after the game, and his sack, I thought late there was really big, in a big spot where it didn't feel like Kentucky had a ton of hope left, but you still had over 2 minutes to play, and they were moving the ball in some chunk yardage plays through the air. That's one of the negative things tonight. Clark said he would like to have a couple of play calls back tonight, like every defensive coordinator does. But Barryon Brown got loose there. I thought they got lucky a little bit there on his late run there. But there was a holding call. But I thought they limited Dane Key enough. I know he had a touchdown, but his fumble force I thought was one of the bigger plays in the game. There early, Trudell Berry just knocking it Excuse me, I need some water. Trudell Berry knocking it out. And was it Nick Rinaldi that recovered that?
Yeah,
I think it was. So Rinaldi recovered it and then had a big sack, so you could say he was player of the game. I gave it to Trudell Berry just because of the magnitude of that play early in the game. Kentucky felt like had some offensive momentum, and Dane Key ends up fumbling that. But I thought they got enough pressure too. And I talked before the game, last-minute thoughts. I said you got to confuse Vandegrift. You've got to frustrate him. You've got to make him uncomfortable. I thought they did. Yeah. Now, he made some plays, right, and he found some receivers open, but I thought defensively, Joey, they did just enough, and credit to Clark Lee and this defensive staff. I gave them a B+. I mean, I thought this was one of the best defensive performances of the season for them. Maybe they wouldn't agree. I mean, I don't know what grade they would give, but I thought they really played well and kept this team in the game. They had some big stops. I mean, late in the defense won the game. They're late. C.J. Taylor's interception got called back. But I thought that was another interesting thing of this game. You go back 2 years ago, 2022, C.J. Taylor ended the game with an interception. He didn't end it with an interception technically, but he was there for it. Derrick Wright had a big night. I thought they just played well. They played well, connected, and you saw some second and third team guys even go in there at certain spots. So I thought that this is about as well as the defense could have played tonight, and they didn't even have to play that well. I don't think.
Yeah, I think Vanderbilt won this game on the back of its defense, and I thought Vandegrift was really rattled throughout a lot of the night. He looked really uncomfortable, more uncomfortable than I'd seen any FBS quarterback look against Vanderbilt this year. Maybe Alcorn's quarterbacks looked a little more uncomfortable, but I just thought he did not look like himself tonight, and I think that was a huge byproduct of what Vanderbilt did. I think another huge story with the defense, and you hinted at it, their second and third team guys stepping up. All offseason we talked about they got more depth, and that's never really amounted to anything when we've talked about that in the past, but tonight I think this was the most depth I've seen Vanderbilt throw out there and have be effective. Bryce Cowan had a big night. Nick Rinaldi had a big night. Rinaldi said Cowan would be his player of the game. Jalen Lackey was out there for a few plays and didn't get exploited. You look at the safeties, I thought they made plays as well. The linebackers, I think, are a huge story tonight, especially those two that we mentioned. And then you look at the edge. Miles Capers is one of their better defensive players recently. B.J. Diakite goes in there and doesn't look like he doesn't belong. I just think they had a lot of guys step in there, and it was truly a next man up mentality. And that's another thing. You look at their connectedness. Everybody knows what to do. They know their assignments. And offensively, I thought one of the biggest things tonight was they played to their identity. Kentucky, I think, scares off a lot of people with their front seven. Vanderbilt was able to run it a little bit, though. They weren't able to run it like they were against Alabama. But Cedric Alexander really fought for the extra yard here or there. I thought they established it enough to be able to put together some long drives. And defensively, they played to their identity of next man up, forcing some disruption. Offensively, they played to their identity as well.
Sure did. And, for the Commodores now, you await a Ball State team that we don't know a ton about, obviously, but I just look at where they're sitting right now. Mm-hmm. We didn't think they'd be 4-2 and 2-1 in the SEC right now. They've got a realistic chance of being ranked tomorrow in the AP Top 25. I truly believe that, which means if you beat Ball State, you're 5-2, 2-1 in the conference. College game day will probably be in Nashville for Texas. And it probably doesn't matter what Texas does either, just because it will be more about Vanderbilt. Yep. Now, I know game day is in Austin next week for Georgia, Texas. I don't think that matters. You've got people talking about this program around the country. I saw a power rankings tonight in the SEC from maybe not the most reputable source, but it's a guy that pays attention to the SEC. They're number 4. Mm-hmm. This is a top half team right now, mm-hmm. Joey, the way they're playing. And you look at their roster, you look at their heights, their weights, what stars they were, their backgrounds. Pavia, he was a walk-on. Mm-hmm. You've got other walk-ons making plays here. Richie Hoskins, Gabe Fisher's in there at fullback. Nick Rinaldi. This is a team of fighters, and it's they said they're having fun. Now they can't slip up obviously against Ball State, but I just look at the spot they're in. I don't think anybody expected this team to be where they're at right now, and it's pretty unbelievable. But I think slowly it's not unbelievable anymore. I thought a lot of tonight was in the press box, windows were closed, so we weren't able to really get a full feel of the environment here. But I thought it felt like business. It felt like this team, like you said, learning how to win, but learning how to say, okay, we'll shake off the next play, punch, counter punch, like Clark Lee says. That's what they did tonight, Joey. And I'm pretty confident this team will do that the rest of the season. I'm not saying they're going to win 7-8 games, but certainly can. I mean, anything's out there. Everything's in front of this team right now.
Yeah, they're playing better football than I think they imagined they would play against a team like this in an environment like this. I think they always had belief, but they're starting to get more guys involved offensively. Cole Spence had 2 catches tonight. Eli Stowers didn't have his best night, but they were still able to move the ball through the air. Quincy Skinner made a play or 2. Richie Hoskins made a play or 2. They're starting to get everybody involved offensively and defensively, and it feels like there's a lot of good football ahead of them. You mentioned them probably being a ranked team tomorrow, and if they're not ranked tomorrow, they're probably going to be ranked after they beat Ball State. I see no reason why this isn't a ranked team right now. They're firing on all cylinders. They have confidence. They have edge. And again, they're a team I wouldn't want to play right now. They're a team I wouldn't want to bet against either. Diego Pavia said, like you mentioned, when you asked him about Vegas and them being a 2-touchdown underdog tonight, he said, I think Vegas is trying to lose money. Yeah. So they just have an edge about them. They have a confidence about them that is just so unique. And I think their schemes are sound. I think their depth is good. I think they know who they are and they play to that identity, which is really rare to see in college football, especially now in the SEC with how the rosters shift year to year. They've all really bought in. They've made it about the whole rather than the individual. And I think that's just such a special team. They win in the margins. They do the next right thing, as Clark Lee says. And they just know how to win. They know who they are. And I think they should totally be rewarded tomorrow by being a ranked team. They have probably the best win of the season. They backed it up tonight. They beat Virginia Tech. I think a lot of people forget about that game, too. That was the biggest win of Clark Lee's tenure in a while before that. Billy, they have a lot of special things going for them right now. And tonight, again, the best thing I think tonight that you mentioned is just it was business as usual. And when has that ever been the standard for this program? Coming on the road and beating a good team has never been business as usual. That's always been something extraordinary. They treated that just like a regular non-conference basketball win tonight, though. And I think that's such a special thing for this program that they really have never had before.
And just think, they're 2 plays away from being 6-0 and having the best resume in the country. Mm-hmm. I mean, you would have a road win against Missouri. You would have a win at home over Alabama, the Virginia Tech win, obviously, the Kentucky win tonight. That's a tough schedule. Mm-hmm. Like, before the season, Joey, we thought this team would really struggle this first half of the schedule. You talked about Alabama, Texas, not even just the first half, throughout the whole schedule. For them to be where they're at right now, I don't want to say it's unbelievable because it's morphing into not becoming unbelievable. And again, credit to Clark Lee. Vanderbilt had a decent amount of fans here tonight. They sold out their allotment. Really looking forward to seeing the crowd against Ball State on Saturday night. It's a night game. I think it's 6 o'clock Central Time, and then we'll see what time the kickoff is for Texas here in a couple of weeks. But you're right, Joey. This team's rolling. They're playing connected football, and that was pretty amazing to see them pull this off tonight. They had to grit it out. I mean, you had to find a way, and they did as a team. So I'll let you have any last minute thoughts here before we get going.
Yeah, Billy. Good teams win when they're not at their best, and Vanderbilt is a really good team. They showed that tonight, and I think they've shown that throughout a lot of the season. We've always kind of thought, man, when's this going to end? When are they going to come back to earth? And they haven't yet. And I don't know if they've shown any indication of stopping or even being close to coming back to earth. They're rolling right now, and I don't have any reason to believe that they're not going to continue to roll. They beat Alabama. They come here, and everybody's thinking, oh, the bubble will probably get burst tonight. They've got all the national media attention. They're going to be in a hangover spot. Nope. They come in here and win against a team that's more physical. They win with a blackout crowd. It's just unbelievable to see where they've come, even from the Kentucky game last year, where A.J. Swan threw 2 pick sixes and they kind of got ran off the field. Today they didn't have their best, and they come out and beat a team that may be better than that Kentucky team last year, at least defensively. I think that's just such a special thing, and you've got to give more credit to Clark Lee, Tim Beck, and Jerry Kill. I mean, they have completely transformed this thing. They had a vision, and their guys believe in it. They've backed them up on it, and those guys are way better motivators than they've been given credit for as well, especially Clark Lee. I think he's caught too much flack for being a philosopher and not being able to motivate. Why can't he do both? I think he's done both. These guys are fired up. They're ready to play every week, and they're on the verge of doing something really special in a program that hasn't had a lot of special.
Yeah, I mean, after a season like last year, I know that this team, they don't want to harp on last year, of course, but I think that is part of the journey. You know, their scars from last season, they feel them now, you know, and this team has learned how to win. They have that ingrained in their mind. And, again, credit to Kill and this staff. But really everybody involved. Because they made it happen tonight. Vanderbilt got a much needed win, but it wasn't a must win tonight. I think that's the other important thing. Like, Vanderbilt was able to get a win that's sort of an icing on the cake type of win.
They didn't need this to be bowl eligible. Like, they could have lost tonight and still had a path to being bowl eligible, but now you've got a real chance. And again, you didn't need it, but you got it.
Right, didn't need it, but you got it. And credit to Diego Pavia. Obviously, didn't have his best night, but played really well still and made some magical heroic type plays. And Vanderbilt got the win, 20-17 over Kentucky. Clarkley's 4th SEC win, 2nd here at Kroger Field over the Wildcats. That's Joey Dwyer. I'm Billy Derrick saying so long, and we'll see you next week against Ball State.